Welcome back, everyone, for another one of our interviews where we have a chance to talk to a former top flight athlete who went through our program and has gone on to play at the collegiate level. This time a little different. If you notice, we're actually talking to one of our male athletes, so this is exciting in that sense to get a slightly different perspective. Although he's played on the men's side of things, he still has to go through the college recruiting experience just like anyone else. And so he is someone that is going to be able to give us another piece of insight from his side of things. Again, we are lucky on a couple of fronts. Just to kind of brag about our gentleman here, he is one of our athletes of the year from Top Flight, so that's pretty awesome. As well as he was part of a quite prestigious men's program. Their program has gone on to compete at the national championship many times, getting down to the finals. And actually, as you see right now, he was part of the team that won the national tournament. There's a little bit of interesting background here, as I coached the team that we played against in his conference. Grandview, our boys team here, and my team, Graceland, went head-to-head. So, it's always fun to have this little conversation. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started. So, my man, what's your name?
I am Brandon Anderson.
Awesome. And when you were at the juniors level, what position did you play?
Man, I kind of just became a student in the game, and I remember playing outside and middle at in my juniors years.
Okay. And then what year did you graduate from Top Flight?
I graduated Top Flight in 2015, I believe.
Okay. And then now I kind of leaked it, but what is the name of the university that you studied and competing for?
I played at Grandview University, and that is in Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay. Now, while you are there, what position did you play for Grandview?
Started out as outside and worked my way to libero when I realized I couldn't really jump as high as some of the other guys.
Okay. And so, a little position change, especially a drastic position change, moving from some middle exposure to a platform-based player. And so what year or when did you graduate from Grandview?
I graduated Grandview in 2019.
Okay, so just got out of the game.
Yep.
So what I'd love to hear from you, Brandon, is kind of just your take. I'd love for you to walk us through the recruiting process, start at the very beginning, how you thought about playing it collegiately, and then kind of work us through the process and how it went for you.
Yeah, so I honestly knew I wanted to play sports in college. I played baseball and basketball throughout my sophomore year of high school, and then started volleyball in Rockford, Illinois, and kind of just fell in love with the game, and just decided to go through with the process of continuing to want to play college sports and using that motivation to drive me, and just kind of talked with Jason and Cindy at Top Flight about, what can I do to make myself a collegiate level player. And they kind of set up some stuff for me and told me what I need to do. And one of my teammates' dads recorded all our games and helped me create a highlight reel, sent it off to a few colleges my the summer of my senior year, so pretty decently late. And then heard back from Donan and a few other coaches and decided to go where I wanted to go to nursing school. And that happened to be at Grandview University. So heard they had good clinicals, heard they had a good, nursing program and a great volleyball program, obviously, with Donan running it through the past few years and continues to run it. And that's kind of where I got with my recruiting process, went on a visit there, kind of signed some paperwork, and then it was just set in stone,
Sure. So a definitely unique perspective, or maybe not unique, but more so different from what we've kind of heard so far, is the point in time in which everything kind of happened for you. Your situation was a lot more of a condensed recruiting process compared to some that may normally experience it. So let's talk about that, the communication process with your coach, Donan. How did that function? One, I'd be curious, how did it function within that short a time frame, really kind of grabbing interest, the summer going into your senior year, you said?
Yeah, so after I graduated high school, that's when I actually started my college search,
Oh,
which I would not recommend to anyone,
sure,
but
sure.
I
So
started
yeah,
super late. But I went to a clinic there about a year before I graduated, and that was just to kind of learn the game and start getting better. So he kind of had some exposure to me, and I kind of knew the culture of the gym a little bit. But it was actually on my scholarship day where I was trying to apply for different scholarships and write essays and do this kind of stuff for scholarships, is when we actually had a meeting about, hey, are you kind of serious about this? We got a lot of good guys coming in, and this might be a very humbling experience. And I was like, no, for sure, I understand my abilities. I started 2 years ago with volleyball, and this is something I want to do. I want to become better, and I'd rather be the worst of the best than the best of the worst at this point. And he's like, all right, if here's what I'm proposing for a scholarship opportunity for you, and if this is okay with you, then we can sign the papers right here. So it was a very condensed, very fast process. I did send him some video footage of my games when I played at Top Flight, but within a span of like 6 months, I was signed and I got in contact with Donan, and then I signed probably about 6 months later.
okay. And so with that happening, and obviously, like you said, you had some previous exposure, or more so we should say, maybe he had some previous exposure to you. You had a chance to know a little bit about the program. He had a chance to interact, know a little bit about you also. Were communication, was that relatively rapid? Did you have fast responses back and forth between you and Donan and kind of push that quickly? Or was it more so the communication was longer in the moment? You covered more meat and potatoes of it in one sitting, as opposed to maybe spanning it out over more time.
Yeah, so I love Donan to death, but he is a very busy man, and I think anyone can attest to say that he doesn't get back to emails and texts very fast. So I kind of pushed the conversation, because I wasn't the cream of the crop at that point. So I kind of had to push the conversation along a little bit, and then finally he realized that I was ready to commit to Grandview, and he took a little bit of interest in me and my motivation. But yeah, kind of like a big meat and potatoes kind of all Thanksgiving dinner. We kind of went over everything with my mom right there, with me right there, and kind of went over everything that I should expect and he should expect out of me.
Cool. Okay. And nothing's wrong with that. Every recruiting experience is different. So this is just one more perspective, which is really interesting to see, because it really shows just how much, if you are determined to play, if you want to play at that next level, you can find the spot that's right for you, and you can still make it work regardless of how rushed you feel. It's still a possibility if you're willing to put in the effort. So let's look at that time when it came down to making that decision. Was there much time at all taken on your part, or even maybe not in that moment? Because if I remember correctly, you did say that you signed there on the spot, but was there time taken before to consider, if an offer is made, this is where I want to go? And if there was, what was it, between just you and soul searching? Was it with you and family members or friends? How did that kind of look?
So yeah, my high school was about 300 kids, and it was in the middle of the country and outside of Rockford, Illinois. And volleyball was just kind of getting started at that point. So my mom and dad were a little skeptical at first, is this something you want to do? You haven't been doing this your whole life. I said, yeah, I'm here. I love the sport. So I think I applied to maybe Penn State, Grandview, and maybe Springfield University in Missouri for the 3 colleges that I had interest in. And Grandview was the only one that actually kind of reached out to me and said, hey, we'd be interested in you having come in to visit. This would be a good opportunity to go to a scholarship day. And like I said, I went there on a clinic before, and I knew their coaches and their kind of system that they ran. So I applied to a few schools, but no, I didn't really have any time to kind of, I guess, soul search, if you will. But I just knew that through the conversations with my family and with Coach Yates and Cindy and Sean Gritzman at Top Flight that I could do this, and it's something that I need to follow through with. It's a gut feeling.
You know, sometimes that's what you got to do. You just have to go with your gut and what feels right. So now, you know, something that I'm sure some people are wondering is, you know, okay, great. You're telling us this story about this condensed experience and how you got there, and you're awesome because you played on this very successful program. But the question is, looking back now, having a chance to reflect, did you still feel like you made the right decision and you had an amazing experience at college, or was there something that you did end up feeling like this was rushed and that maybe if you would have taken more time, you would have gotten into a better fit?
This is how I still think about this and probably change my mind every time I answer the question, just because there's so many things at Grandview that I loved about it. You know, the professors, the small class sizes, the one-on-one with the coaches, the culture of the team. Most people kind of are familiar with the Grandview men's team, but we have people come from Cuba, Puerto Rico, Brazil, Guam, Hawaii. So the culture of that team is just such a huge educational experience for me as a nurse, because I now know how those cultures deal with pain and healthcare. So going from that standpoint, I wouldn't change a darn thing. But if I was going back and I was looking at different nursing programs and different volleyball programs, I think I would want to apply to more colleges and see what opportunities I can, you know, go with my full potential, I guess. You know, and I don't feel like Grandview stopped me from achieving my full potential. I just feel that if I were to attempt to go to more prestigious programs, I feel like if I were to apply to more colleges and, you know, start my search a little earlier and was knowing what I was going to do rather than my sophomore year of high school when I decided to quit both my sports and play volleyball, then I probably could have had more opportunities and probably could have, you know, been in one of the bigger colleges. But no, I don't think I would have changed anything. It was a good school. I had good educational experience. I had a great volleyball experience and learned a bunch of stuff about culture while being there, which is just icing on the cake.
Awesome. I love that response. Very honest, very genuine. So, you know, with that, I really feel like you dived into it very well. You really gave a good, you really helped us explore what kind of a condensed experience is like, which is really cool, really different. But so with this all being said now, one last thing would just be, if now having that hindsight, looking back, what little piece of parting advice can you give to our athletes? Maybe something that you sit here and be like, man, I wish I would have known that back before when I started. Or, man, I wish I would have done that different. I know you kind of just touched on that, but I don't know if you feel like that's like that piece of parting advice, because you still were happy with your experience. So you wouldn't really change that. But what might you say?
So I guess my biggest piece of advice that, you know, I've been thinking on this while we've been changing all the interview times, but just keep yourself humble. A lot of people think going into college and getting recruited and getting, you know, maybe even a decent amount of scholarship, that you're going to be the big fish in the big pond. And most of the time when you come into these very elite programs, you're the smallest fish in a very large pond. And that took me a moment to realize. So I would just say be humble and always stay a student of the game, because once you lose one of those two, people are going to start surpassing you just because they have more internal motivation than you do. So I guess just always be a student in the game and always visit your colleges and your team before you go and finally sign, because sometimes there's certain personalities on the team, or maybe even the coach to player personalities don't mesh with what you're looking for. So that's my little 2 bits of advice, I guess. But yeah.
That's great. Well, I love to hear that. It's great to hear that, because it's kind of touching base a little bit also on the volleyball aspect, just outside of the recruiting, which is very, very important. Even though it's not directly attesting to something with the recruiting factor, it's still talking to something towards helping them make the proper decision. So that's a great piece of advice. So again, Brandon, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with us and go through this interview. I want to wish you all the best and continuing being a student of the game, staying involved with the sport as much as you can. I know that you love it. And, you know, continuing in now that you're in the adulting world, that you are able to keep managing it well and having a good time while doing it.
Heck yeah, man. Volleyball is an awesome sport, and you can play it forever.
Yes, you can. All right, Brandon, I appreciate you taking the time. Have a great rest of your day, okay?
Hey, you too, Jake. See ya.
All right, see ya.